Yes, let's talk. This is Let's Talk, a weekly on-the-air forum featuring our listeners and three unlikely-looking people in this studio. We'd like to hear from you on every topic we talk about, and we believe your voice matters, and we will welcome your thoughts and views without judgment. As far as we can, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're only human, right?
We're only human. So the number to call in is 415-663-8492 or 8317 if that one's busy. And when you do call in, hang on until you hear me say you're on the air, and then please turn off whatever device you're listening to. Give us a name. Any name will do. And most of all, most importantly, keep the language clean on live radio. This is community radio.
Oh, goody.
And we don't want to give a bad impression of oneself, does one? Yes, that was a mix.
Well, and then there's the rules. There's the good old rules.
So I'm
language...
Paul Raphael. Stephen Hurwitz.
Hi there.
Shelley Rudd.
Good afternoon.
Just to begin, though, before we get into the subject, how did we get those differentiation between clean and dirty words?
Clean and
Ask
dirty.
George Carlin. He has a great
I just wonder
great
why
talk
it's
on
dirty, you know?
Dirty. Well,
References to certain things as being dirty.
yeah, well, the body, of course. The body is so dirty. We all have one, but they're awfully dirty, aren't
Well,
they?
the things that's so funny about it is that pretty much everyone we know uses a lot of these words regularly in their conversation.
Regularly.
Yes, which is why we have to ask people to be very careful
Yeah.
because it's easy to slip up.
Yeah.
Everyone uses the words, and if anyone should object, the FCC would come a-storming in. And,
Oh, no.
oh yeah. So here we are. Let's talk. So all that aside,
Yeah. What are we talking about?
we are talking about.
I'd like to know that, too.
Well, okay, here we go. As with every week, I read an article, and it was about the how before the Enlightenment in the late 18th century, when science kind of didn't take over from religion, but it became more of an equal footing with religion. Before that, no one thought of extinction of species as being a thing. That if God had made something, it obviously had its place, and even if we wiped it out, like the dodo, which apparently nobody noticed for a while, and then somebody said,
have
"Hey,
you
wait
seen
a
any
minute.
dodos lately?
Where's them dodos gone?" It didn't matter if we drove a species to extinction because
There were
they
so
would
many.
come back. They would come back, or they still existed somewhere else. Apparently, Thomas Jefferson thought mammoths, the woolly mammoths, were roaming the interior of the United States, the unexplored interior, and some other prehistoric animal.
If they were, we would have gone straight out and killed them all.
Good eating, them mammoths.
Dinner.
So that got me thinking a little bit. So then, and part of that was to do with the fact that the universe is a just and moral place, that the earth is run on moral principles. And
who says this?
well, everyone used to say it. I mean, right from Aristotle on, all the way through the ancients up to the Enlightenment.
Oh, yeah.
There was this
survival
thing
of the
that-
fittest. If you die off, it's because you weren't worthy.
Well, there's that. So, yeah, the moral universe was where everything is run on moral grounds, and so that was a reason, first of all, to be moral, to be a good person, good, whatever that means, because you would be rewarded with heaven or hell. I mean, that was part of it. Or karma.
And you might be a better slave, too.
Oh, well, more obedient. Yes, a good slave.
Well, God seemed to be wrapped up in all of it.
Well, religion, yeah, sure. It was, but nobody, I don't know why it didn't, I'm not sure. I read that article and a couple of others why it was believed that extinction was not even brought up. I mean, extinction of the human species certainly never came up because we know that we are the
center of the universe.
Center of the universe.
I think we are, actually.
That whole thing that the universe revolves around the Earth, that was all part of that whole just and
I think you can make a good case for that.
So now that means that for our epigenetics, it's deeply ingrained within us that those couple of thousand years at least of that kind of thinking is in our genetic stock. And is that, I was just thinking, well, is that why we've been made so many terrible things happen to the Earth? And does it, isn't that basically what, let's just say, the current administration, but it's not just them, the businesses, they're opening, they're weakening the Endangered Species Act. They're
environmental
mining,
protection.
They're going to be draining mills into rivers again, all this other stuff, because it doesn't matter. Because God has a plan, first of all, and
to do us all in, maybe.
Well, there you are. So then 2 days ago, and this all happened around Epstein's death. However, it was caused in his cell, Jeffrey Epstein. And that brought up to me, well, was that a just ending for him? Or did he beat justice? Or did someone make him beat justice? Or
his secrets go to the grave, yeah.
It's just a discussion about things like that. It's not
Oh,
really
is that all?
That's all. Nothing big. And then
I had something to say, but you were so long-winded I can't remember anymore.
The preamble. No one remembers the Constitution, just the preamble. Anyway, give us a call. 415-663-8492. Are you a believer in karma? That's all part of this thing. Yes, Stephen, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
you've forgotten.
Yeah, we're dying to know,
I told
Steve.
you, I'm trying to think of it. But go on to karma, though. I think it was real popular back in the 70s. I think the tarot reading and thoughts about karma, I don't think it's, I don't hear it today the way I heard it 30 years ago.
Well, it was the 60s,
the discovery of Indian
mysticism,
right,
and yoga, the appropriation of other cultures, perhaps you could call it that. Anyway, but that's all wrapped up. Karma is just another way of saying just desserts, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, right.
If you're good. And if there is an afterlife, well, okay, there we go. The afterlife. That is all wrapped up in this whole thing.
That's right.
That the afterlife is going to be a judgment of your life in some way or another.
So you better be good.
If you believe in in recurring cycles of life, then someone is judging you on how you acted, and you'll come back as something higher form, or
you come back to right all those wrongs that you. But I think you can break out of that. If you're a good person in certain ways, you don't have to come back and make up for all your.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't think so. Would somebody call and straighten me out on that?
Nirvana.
The numbers to call are 415-663-8492 or 8317. We'd love to hear what you think about, is this a just world?
Is it a just and moral world? Is it run by the great architect of the universe? This is what Freemasons, this is what they talk about. And Rosicrucians and the great architect of the universe. The guy who was up there designing everything, and of course putting us at the center.
Isn't this all just a way to frame everything? There are just so many. When you start getting into the spiritual realm, and when you talk about architect of the universe, aren't these just ways to frame things that fundamentally we don't understand?
Yeah,
yeah, that's part of it. I kind of have an unpleasant slant to this. I feel that.
Shelley's going to.
Oh no, I'm going to be unpleasant.
Yeah, I was going to say that's so out of character.
Well, actually, I heard this really probably first in art school when we were learning about art history, and a lot of the early art, not cave paintings, but traditional oil paintings, were depicting religious scenes, historical scenes, things that they wanted to make people think were great. But the reason that they made so much religious artwork was because the commoners didn't know how to read. So the pictures helped them understand the stories and learn how to stay in the box.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's a way of managing humans, teach them the rules. And, how they're supposed to, do the right thing and all of that.
Be obedient.
Wasn't it the Protestant Reformation that sort of opened the door to something other than a religious theme? I think it was. I mean, the Protestants got rid of all the symbols. They got rid of Christ crucified could no longer, they removed they kept the cross, but the depiction of the Christ crucified was removed.
Oh, was it?
Oh, yeah. All that Catholic symbology was trashed.
They took away all the blood and
I took away all that. Yeah, all the saints were.
I think there's something about spirituality, that a lot of human beings can relate to. When you're sitting in nature and you're recognizing your part in the whole, which is this world we live on, and all of the creatures and everything that lives here. We're all part of that same thing. This living organism that's the earth. And we can tap into our spiritual nature, but I think that's really different than religion that tells us that there's something wrong with us. And that
we're all sinners.
Yeah,
we're all sinners.
Yeah,
born sinners.
And that just If you like that and you're listening, please call and help me. And I'd love to understand better because I wasn't raised in a traditional religion, and I only know a few Bible stories because I heard them. I never read the Bible, so that's where I'm coming from. And
well,
you
were created from an act of sin.
Oh no!
Yes, by your parents.
But wait a second. We do have a morality, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from religion.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
if you would like to argue with Stephen on that point, please do call in.
Because everybody.
I've had this argument with the guy on the streets of Santa Rosa.
Really?
I'm talking about social. I think we have a social code of how we're supposed to treat our
the golden
inhabitants.
Rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Could also be translated into treat other people the way you would like to be treated. That's a real basic thing. But there's the gray areas of people who like to. I don't know. I just watched this documentary about human trafficking, and in this case, it was in Saudi Arabia. But it's happening here in America too. And I just heard on KWMR there was a woman here who escaped a situation where she basically got trafficked into being a farm worker. And she was like a prisoner of the farm, and she had to find a way to escape. And so this story in Saudi Arabia...
In California.
These were women who were just looking for a job. They thought they were going to get a job working in a hotel as housekeeping, and instead they were placed in a private home and kept prisoner.
Sure, Filipinos in the Middle East.
And
that's a biggie.
when this woman was talking to the man who makes arrangements for these servants, Do you want an Ethiopian? Do you want a Filipino? Cost extra for this, or they were sexually abused often,
and they're not even granted fundamental things like days off.
No, they're 24/7 slaves, and trapped.
Sure. Where do you go? You don't even have a passport.
You have
if
nothing.
You do, it's been confiscated.
Yeah. So that's something that I just can't wrap my brain around, how one human being can treat another human being as if they're less than a dog. Mm-hmm. And even dogs, deserve respect in America. We want to treat our animals well. It's by getting rid of slavery, then slavery goes underground. It's still happening.
Or it's institutionalized.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up something else, though, is that this notion that somehow there's been progress, social progressiveness. Mm-hmm. How can this happen in 2019?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's people who think they're
do you believe
better
in
than
that?
other
Do you
people.
consider that as being something?
I think that
Is that too cynical?
I would have to say that it has improved somewhat, because we're actually sitting here being outraged that this is still going on.
Maybe we're just naive.
That would not have been the case maybe a couple of hundred years ago when our founding fathers had their slaves.
Nothing really changed for freed slaves in the South. They were, it really didn't change until they started heading north in huge numbers.
Anyway, so what you're describing is immorality, and
but they don't.
All these people are going to go to hell.
They don't think
so. Are
so.
they going to get their just desserts?
They think that this is the way that they'll live.
Yeah,
it's okay in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
They really think they're better than other people.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you're talking about religion, God, an afterlife. I mean, all those things.
Well, that's all bound up in this whole thing: the just universe, the moral universe, the fact that it goes along with the idea that humans are the epitome of creation, and everything else is here for our use. That's in the Bible, and
wow.
And it was actually it was the belief system throughout a lot of the world.
Well, that was smart of them to put it in the Bible, because that gives everyone permission to rape and pillage.
Right. Yeah. Wars. Holy wars.
Because the Bible said so.
Holy wars done for the good.
Well,
and I was fascinated by the language. We're talking about the language coming home, things coming home to roost, and getting. You deserve what. Oh, you reap what you sow. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
You reap what you sow. So
well, wait a second.
Which is now
isn't so. That's not so hard to grok. How's that one?
Grok. Wow, there's a time machine. Right.
I don't find that so hard. Why? Because it's really just saying that there is a causality to your actions, and then you can act in a certain way, and the effects of that action can affect you later on. I mean, you can just put it in different. It's shorthand essentially for you mistreat your dog. Don't be surprised if he bites you. I mean,
right?
True, but it can also, and has been. It is applied, I would say, in our capitalistic society, where the people who have succeeded, the good ones, like Jeffrey Epstein, way up there on top, got all the money, all the toys, all the little girls he wants.
Must be good.
He must be good because,
right.
And the homeless guy that he walks by and doesn't even look at deserves his being homeless,
his lot in life,
living on the street.
But it turns out that he was a very generous man.
That's nice.
I know.
Generous
I'm saying
there.
He was generous in terms of endowing programs at universities. Let's put it this way: as who was it that sent you greenwashing the money, so to speak? I mean, even the Koch brothers.
They have two wonderful things.
Yeah,
Rockefeller Institute. All those guys.
Yeah, so it's not like. Epstein was, walking by and not noticing the guy in the street. I mean, that may be true, but we all might walk by the guy.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
And is there a little piece inside of us that goes,
Well, I'd like to have a little stash of dollars.
Wonder what he did. Or instead of, what can I do for him, it's, wonder what he did. A little bit. Do we ever feel that? Shelley doesn't. She's a lovely person. You're going to heaven, Shelley.
Yes, I talk to the homeless. I do.
Yeah.
But, I think a good illustration of this point would be the AIDS crisis.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. A lot of people were saying, well, they're gay, so they deserve the AIDS,
it's God's curse against them. We even heard that. Live.
Yeah.
On air. Speaking of live on air, we have a caller. Hi, caller, you're on the air. What's your name, please?
My name's MK.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, MK.
You know Shelley.
Yes, MK.
You didn't say hi to me.
You know Shelley. You know what I'm talking about, Shelley. I think that anybody that... okay, explain this to me, because you guys are all really smart.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
How can anybody say all men are created equal? This has become words that tumble out of people's mouths to make other people sit up and think, well, it's written down, God, whatever, it must be right, all people are created. That's not. I mean...
Good job watching your language.
I know, that was close one.
Yeah, it is nonsensical if you dig below the surface. There's no doubt about that.
It's insane. And what's happening is with the current administration that everybody's getting permission to just be a bad guy if they want to. And then those of us who are good guys are beating our heads against the wall saying, but, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't have any idea. It's going to take a big SWAT from somewhere to get this thing back on track, if it ever does.
Yeah.
Why are they?
They sound like a Debbie Downer, but it's maybe I'll change my name. Hi, this is Debbie. I'm baffled. I think you're making a lot of good points, and you make a lot of sense as usual. And I just wish somebody would explain to me why. If all people are created equal, stuff is being, anybody listens to it at all.
Well, I think,
silly.
There's people who don't agree with that phrase, and that's where the fallout is.
Yeah, but do they even get to the point where they're disagreeing, or they just sort of look at it and toss it out the window?
I think it's cultural. I think it's decades of... what do you call it? Programming, it's handed down from generation to generation, family to family. And,
self-aggrandizement.
We're better. Yet their kids are raised to believe and are told that they are better and above others. And so that's how they go through life. They don't know any other way. Just like people who are raised in, really violent, neighborhoods, they know violence. They see that as how we solve problems.
And that's a way of life.
Right. But, either one of those people can break free from that conditioning. But, what does it take? Self-awareness, I don't know. How do you get that?
It takes taking a lot of stuff away is what it does. And that's what's happening.
What do you mean?
Right. That those of us who are on the path of righteousness, or whatever you want to call it.
Sorry.
Self-aggrandizing.
Sorry.
Nice people who care about others.
Well, yeah, and I think at least I, as a nice nice person, I'm looking at it thinking, oh, okay, this is disappearing, and I'm sort of left flapping in the wind, not knowing what path to take. I mean, it's an example. This morning I walked down to physical therapy, and I walked back, and it's a mile. And there's a man driving down the road on a bicycle, and I could see a kid sitting behind him with her legs, or it's his person, legs flapping in the breeze, and it was this beautiful black kid, the blackest black kid you've ever seen, with a white man driving the bicycle, and I thought, oh, that's so nice. And then I thought the first thing anybody would think of was that he was abducting her or taking advantage of her. Or
wow.
On a bicycle?
To clutter up, whatever. Yeah. To clutter up my mind with this nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up super white. There were no black people, no colored, no anybody of other ethnicities where I lived except Wendy the Wasp and her followers.
So what was it like for you to enter into a mixed culture arena?
It didn't matter. I had an uncle who ran the farm who was a totally racist person. I mean, anybody that was not white Anglo-Saxon Protestant was inferior.
Mm-hmm.
He had really good points. He was a really interesting person. He was an intelligent person. He was a Yaley, and blah 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 blah. And he hated. He was really biased. I don't know. I suddenly was dumped into situations on this coast, in mixed classrooms of children, and it really didn't enter my mind. There were some kids I didn't like.
Yeah.
And to say that about a child is, it's hard, but it does happen.
And Kay, you were talking about how you're on the path of righteousness, or somehow you feel that the things that you hold dear are good, and then there are these people who are not good because they don't hold the same things dear. But, you talk to people who are, say, fundamentalist Christians, and they feel they're on the path of righteousness, sure. and what they're doing is good, and it may not be what you consider good. So isn't, in some sense, it's relative?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. Just want to
absolutely
make sure.
I just feel like whatever we choose to do, that it's okay as long as it's not harming other people. And I think that there are people who make choices that cause harm to other people.
Have you noticed how broke you are all the time? I've noticed how broke I am all the time. And I think it's partly due to the fact that we're on the path of righteousness.
Ooh. Or you can go through the eye of a needle easier than a camel. Was it?
Yeah.
Well,
I haven't tried that yet, but I haven't.
Boy, did you screw that up?
Well, something like that, isn't it?
That's why we keep him around. Yeah.
Comic relief.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents worth, and I'm still going to do what I do because I don't have enough strength to change my. The horse in the middle of the stream, as it were.
Just be yourself.
Just be yourself and realize
and do no harm.
You're fallible. I think it's the money thing. It's the money. Yeah, it's the money.
So
money is the beast for sure.
Yep.
Thank you, MK.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon.
And you
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was interesting. I just did a double. My finger started going.
So I think, but you need to do something here.
Oh, yes, I would like to say this is KWMR 90.5 in Point Reyes Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, and 92.3 in San Geronimo Valley, streaming live online and on the app. KWMR.org and the KWMR app. KWMR is supported by Drake's Bay Oyster Company, who continues to keep on shucking, providing sustainably farmed oysters from the waters of the Pacific Coast to restaurants, markets, and oyster bars in Northern California. Employee-owned and grown. More at 415-669-1149. And it is also support for this station is also provided by Marin Agricultural Land Trust, a member-supported non-profit organization working to preserve Marin County farmland. On the web at malt.org. That's MALT.org. And this is Let's Talk, and we're talking today. We're having a little discussion in the studio, which we urge listeners to join, about the just world hypothesis, really, is what it is. The just universe. And the way it has affected human behavior, human psychology, human attitude. Anyway, and the number to call is 415-663-8492. Part of this culture of part of this ingrained belief in morality, that the world is a moral place and that you get what you deserve. Victim shaming. So there have been studies done by psychologists and social theorists. Stanley Milgram, remember the Milgram experiment? That was about obedience, whether students will do whatever they're told, right? And sure enough, they did, regardless of suffering, right? So apparently someone called Melvin Lerner in the 60s started to investigate observer responses to victimization. Again, female subjects were made to watch someone receiving electrical shots under a variety of conditions. At first, they were very upset by the suffering, and then as it carried on, they got more and more inured to it, and they started to derogate the victim. They started to put the victim down. Why is he just sitting there? Sure. It was greater when the observed suffering was greater. When subjects were told the victim would receive compensation for her suffering, the subjects stopped derogating the victim.
Huh. So what were the conclusions from these experiments?
He theorized that there was a prevalent belief in a just world. It's still around. A just world is one in which actions and conditions have predictable, appropriate consequences. And these actions and conditions are typically individuals' behaviors or attributes. And if it doesn't work out that way, that belief in the just world is, he says, it's crucially important for people to maintain for their own well-being. But people are confronted daily with evidence that the world is not just, as we've been saying, as MK was saying. The world is not just, so how do you deal with it? You have different strategies to eliminate threats to your belief. They can be rational or irrational. Rational strategies include accepting the reality of injustice, trying to prevent injustice or provide restitution, and accepting one's own limitations. Very sensible. Non-rational strategies include denial, withdrawal, and reinterpretation of the event, including victim blaming. So you have, of course, rape is the obvious thing. So the rapist.
Why was she dressed that way?
She was raped by, not he raped her, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, right.
Yeah. It's all in the language. It's all in, was she drinking? Did she have a short skirt on?
Mm-hmm.
Wearing a tank top? Really?
Mm-hmm.
It's all this. It's a way, apparently. Part of it is that it's a way of dealing with an immoral and unjust world. People get hurt. People get things done to them. Things happen to people, and we seek an explanation.
Yeah, and I think, it might be about trying to be safe. You're trying to sort it out. If that happened to that person, how can I keep it from happening to me?
Right, obviously.
So it must be something they did that caused it, right?
Yeah, right.
But,
I'm a believer that we do the things that make us feel good. And I don't know, you just interpret things so that you feel good, essentially.
Well, yeah, and often when confronted by things like that, let's just say immigrants coming to the southern border, the invasion of immigrants on our southern border.
And so,
they are being put down because of the misfortunes that have happened to them.
Well,
they are at fault somehow.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
We're all being manipulated right now to believe something that may or may not be true of all immigrants, right? And it's very unfair. Mm-hmm. It's not just.
It's not just?
No.
It's not moral.
Surprise, surprise, huh?
Victim derogation and other strategies may only be ways to alleviate discomfort after viewing suffering. This would mean that the primary motivation is not to restore a belief in a just world, but to reduce discomfort caused by empathizing. So instead of empathizing,
there you go.
You say, obviously,
They were in the wrong place at the wrong time, doing the wrong thing.
Obviously, these people coming to our southern border are just terrible murderers and rapists.
Or something like an abused woman, somebody saying, well, why doesn't she just leave?
Why doesn't she leave?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, indeed. So that's another. And this is all tied in with this whole thing, the just world, the great architect, God, all religions, karma, all this stuff, that if you're good, you will be rewarded. If you're bad, something terrible is going to happen to you. And so when terrible things happen to innocent people, they must have done something wrong to deserve it.
What about the bad people who continue to have good things happen to them?
Well, only the good die young, and mean people are just apparently too mean-spirited to die. Except for Jeffrey Epstein, who, as I said, was the same day I read this article that first piqued my interest in the just world hypothesis.
He had it coming, maybe.
Justice.
Maybe he had it coming.
Was that justice? Or did he avoid it? Or did someone help him avoid it? It's all tied in with the same thing. Obviously, he did something wrong, or allegedly, pardon me. Everyone's innocent until proven
claimed that morals are going to change. He said this is just a temporary point of view, essentially.
Oh, this thing about having sex slaves. Young sex slaves, that'll all change.
Well, Saudi Arabia, in a sense, I don't know if you'd call them sex slaves, but they do put their wives in. I'm being so general. I've never even been to Saudi Arabia. I have no idea.
I've been to Saudi Arabia.
Excuse me.
Oh, they just passed a law saying, they just relaxed the law that required all women who leave the house, first of all, to be covered as much as possible. That is slowly going away. But they don't have to have bodyguards with them anymore. The wealth. We're talking about wealthy people, of course. And that was certainly the way back in, whenever it was, 70-something, late 70s. You walk into the souk and there are these women wandering around all swathed in black, and there's this big guy with each one of them. And they go into the jewelry store where they're going to try on all these things that you never see them wear outside the house. And the guy just stands in the door. Like that until she comes out.
Well, women aren't allowed to leave home unless they're accompanied by a male.
Well, right.
And it could be their 12-year-old cousin.
Changing.
That might be sufficient.
Apparently, they've just relaxed that law.
Oh, good.
The prince, that wonderful man, who had a journalist chopped up. Interesting.
Gosh, so
he wasn't so bad after all.
Everything is because of men. That's what it is.
Now then.
That's a different subject. Dear to his heart. Dear to Paul's heart.
True.
Dear to Paul's heart.
It's all our fault, Stephen.
But, or anyone. I mean, it could be a male person, or it could be just anybody who, because it happens with women too, that they really believe they are absolutely superior than other humans. And you
look at there was a little story came up on my screen. This family, I think it's the Walmart family, make $4 million, $4 million an hour or something.
Oh my gosh!
and there's a photo of them all sitting there. They're attending some thing, and they're all, and
it's all inherited money.
It's all inherited. They live in this ridiculous bubble like Trump used to, and never had contact with anyone that he didn't. He could filter anybody out. All these people, man. Anyway, but that's because this is not a just or moral world.
It's not all men. That Walton family's got lots of women in there.
Yeah. No, I would never say that there are not naughty women around. We have a caller. Hi, caller. You're on the air. What's your name, please?
Yeah, it's Debbie.
Oh no!
She just couldn't.
I was thinking about Martha Stewart, who's a wonderful example of a lot of this stuff. Who she was started out like humble beginnings, with a Polish family, and her funny old mother, and the rest of it, and then got a wild hair and went for it and succeeded and succeeded and succeeded and stomped on a whole bunch of people's toes, I'm sure, and so on and so forth. And then finally she got too big for her very fashionable britches and got sent to jail. And when she came out, she went right back to doing things, but there was a different attitude about her stuff. And now she is hanging with Snoop Dogg and selling CBD oil. How cool is that?
Yeah, Martha.
Talk about the gamut, honey.
She lost me. She lost me when I saw a program as to how to pack for a trip.
Oh, how to pack?
Sort of a Mary Kondo kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway, I thought it was funny, and anyway, so I thought it would.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. That was
welcome.
lovely. The Martha Stewart story.
It was a little Martha Stewart story. Bye.
Bye. Thanks. The number is 415-663-8492. Positive mental health effects of belief in a just world. It's good and maybe even necessary for mental health. Belief in a just world is associated with greater life satisfaction and well-being and less depressive affect. I think this, I would imagine that, I'm terribly sort of middle-class upbringing, lower middle class. I work, manual, but I'm certainly not in living in poverty so much. I mean, paycheck to paycheck, like everybody else. But I would say that if you were poor, and especially if you were poor and black and living in, I don't know, Detroit slums somewhere, or if you were a slave, basically, or in jail, or whatever, you would not believe in a moral and just world.
It would be very depressing.
Call in if you're listening.
I'm not sure I buy that, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess religion would hold out something.
I know. I'm just thinking that
suffering is only temporary.
I think there might be people in prison, for example, that think that they have a chance to change from their that justice that maybe their justice was properly administered, and they have a chance to change their lives, so to speak, and become good people when they really
there are certainly documented stories of people like that.
I mean, you have to believe that you can be that you can leave prison and be a better person than you were when you went in. I mean, what do you sit there all day and say,
really?
"Boy, when I get out, I'm going to go right back to burgling."
I think that's probably recidivism is as high as it's ever been. Call in if you wish to debate that. 415-663-8492.
Recidivism.
Oh, recidivism. Oh, repeat offending. So
yes,
you get
I understand what it means.
Oh, okay. What?
You just wanted to say the
word?
word?
To see if it is higher. Oh,
that.
no, that's just going to be, that's going to take too much
It would
time.
be too...
Well, we know that people end up in prison who didn't deserve to be there. There's the story of the young woman.
I would see a lot of them, by the way.
Who killed her abuser and ended up in prison. Don't we have a self-defense rule, or So I think she's finally getting let out, but it took a lot of work to make that happen.
It is not it's not a perfect system.
Or all
by
of
any
the
means.
young men that have been getting away with rape because it might ruin their lives. It's well, what about the victim?
Well, he's on the swim team. Of course, we can't ruin his chances of
there's
being an Olympic medalist.
There's a situation that so much good has come to him that, in a sense, the judge felt that he could not interfere with the cycle of good.
Right.
Oh, dear.
Because he's wealthy.
Well, and he's a star. I think the big thing was he was a star swimmer, and that happened in Ohio, 5 or 6 years ago, where the star football guy was actually filmed. Somebody had their camera out there and caught him in the act, and posted it. And yet people did not want to find him they didn't want him to have his just desserts because he was so important to the Massillon, Ohio football team.
I think that
football's taken very seriously in Ohio.
Jesus.
So there's the known and the unknown, right? So when we don't know somebody, we don't know their story, it's so easy to be quick to judge them and just write them off, like, the homeless person, the person in jail. They clearly deserved their situation.
Right.
But
well, and that's
if we know
these rape victims of these two jocks, the swimmer had this girl behind a dumpster somewhere outside a bar or something, and she was drunk. She was passed out drunk. Well, so
obviously she
deserved it.
Obviously she deserved it. Right. That's basically what the judge was saying. And it's
as if this judge never had a mother or a sister or an aunt or a daughter who he would be appalled if something like that had happened to her,
He
right?
was pulled off the court, by the way.
Oh, good.
Was he?
The community was so outraged by that. Yeah.
Well, see, so
there you go.
He got his just desserts.
He got what he had coming.
Justice!
Yay! It is a moral universe.
Because
People
our
do have
so-called
things coming.
Our so-called justice system
Do they?
is so
they
messed
absolutely
up.
do.
Social justice, yeah.
Our justice system is really messed up,
Right.
and it's serving. It became privatized, so people are making money off of it. That's not good. That's not good for justice.
No.
You were talking about stories. The swimmer had this story. I found that that one of the reasons that young black men get treated differently is they don't have the same story that white people do. And so you get them in front, and they can't say he's going to junior college.
I don't know about that. I think he could have the same story, but no one wanted to know.
Well, I think that if you present a very positive upbringing story, you have your likelihood of being treated more fairer. Let's say you have a positive
the lighter
outcome.
Your skin,
you have more of a positive outcome.
If you're white, you mean? Is this white and well-to-do?
You don't even have to be well-to-do. You just have to have a good story. He works. How
about except in the case of high school football stars who would very often be black in Ohio, even in Ohio, I'm guessing.
If he was the star at Massillon, I think that he'd have the same outcome.
The same outcome if he was black or white.
Oh, yeah.
He can play football. He can really throw that ball around.
That is the story. All they have to say is he's the star quarterback for Massillon. Oh, we can't let that happen to him.
Well, he wouldn't be a black quarterback, of course. But how many are there? Count them on the fingers of one hand, I think, in the NFL.
Black
quarterbacks.
Played. Oh, well, maybe. But, boy, it certainly is a white guy getting a chance at a basketball. I mean, look at basketball for crying out loud. You have this lone white guy. Oh, hey, there's a white guy playing.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I wasn't saying that. Oh, dear.
I think
this has gone off on a tangent.
Okay, here's a different.
I think they're dominated by African American. They're better.
What I was saying was there would be a different outcome if a black person had been doing that rape behind a dumpster.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Unless in Ohio he was a star running back. Right?
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think if you're important to the football team and to the victory, I think that you're going to get more lenient treatment.
Look, he can run with a ball.
It's a really good. He's got a really good story. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh boy. Well, so that just proves this is not a moral and just world.
It isn't.
Just take, for example,
but there must be people out there who believe it is. Come on now, give us a call. We have about, say, 5 minutes left.
Well,
give us a call, 415-663-8492.
If family members are supportive of a young man and show up at court for every hearing, if you've got that family, the mother, people out there supporting, that's a better story.
Right.
But if it's just some lone kid, nobody shows up in support of them.
Or they can't afford the time off from their 3 jobs.
That's
right.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's all about poverty
That's
and
the
wealth.
slavery thing.
Well, maybe
Skin
so.
color.
I'm just saying that whatever the story is and the reason for the story, it does help to create a better story to know that he has family support.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I believe that it's a moral and just world, but I like to try to be moral and just myself
You want
as
to-
best I can.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's because you're a lovely person.
Oh, thank you.
And you want to live as if it is a moral and just world.
You know, but it's horrifyingly.
But you still lock your doors, I'm guessing.
I'm not going to tell.
And you're heavily armed. Let's just say.
Right. I'm packing.
Studies have found socio-political correlates of just world beliefs, including right-wing authoritarianism and the Protestant work ethic. Studies have also found belief in a just world to be correlated with aspects of religiosity. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
Well, sure. Studies of demographic differences, including gender and racial differences, have not shown systematic differences, but do suggest racial differences, with blacks and African Americans having the lowest levels of belief in a just world.
I'm not
I
surprised.
wonder why.
Yeah.
The descendants of slaves don't believe in a just world. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, and this thing that's happening with the families being separated at the border and kids, you know, being left alone.
And that can
Nobody would think that's okay.
That can be justified.
in
It's okay
America.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, but somebody obviously does.
Nothing matters anymore. Morality and justice don't matter anymore.
Well, everybody, please be nice to each other out there. Be kind.
Do
Have
it
a
on
loving heart.
Yes, that's lovely. And on a personal level, yeah, really. I mean, that's all we can do, really, isn't it? I mean, we can make outcries against what we see as terrible, egregious acts by others,
And as,
especially
you
the
know,
powerful. But
And we all make
mainly
mistakes.
it comes down to how we are in our home, in our neighborhood, in our family, in our communities.
How we treat others.
That's right.
How we treat nature. How we treat animals.
They found that psychopaths actually are very they're favored. People think very positive of them in their community. They don't beat the dog
Until they do. Or they kill someone
until
else.
they
Yes.
discover what they've been doing on
So
the side. That's right.
they put on a good front.
They certainly do.
Ah.
In fact, there was the same. I didn't save it, but there was an article, "How to Spot a Psychopath."
Oh.
And how do we do that?
I don't know.
They
I
have
didn't read it, but I
orange
thought it was
hair
an
and
interesting- yes, white beards, lots of
no.
freckles.
Uh-oh.
I've been typed. This has been another edition of Let's Talk. Call-in radio. We like to call it call-in radio. Thank you, MK.
Thanks, MK and Debbie, for calling in.
And we'll be back next week. Thank you, Stephen, for
You're welcome.
taking part in this rather esoteric topic.
It was a
Thank
tough
you, Shelley.
subject.
Thank you, Paul. And if you love this show,
Oh, give us a tip.
yeah, $20.
One
For
just
20
one other
years.
thing. This was a subject tailor-made for Charles. He must not be looking because, this was just right up his alley.
Yes, he could have chimed in on this one. Oh, well. This has been Let's Talk, and thank you to all our listeners. We know you're out there. There were 14 of you at last count, online, that is. And our callers, thank you, MK, and tune in every Thursday at noon and join our conversations. We'll be back next week with another topic. Who knows what it will be? KWMR does not take a stand on any of the issues discussed on Let's Talk. Opinions expressed on this program are those of the hosts and callers and do not necessarily reflect the views of KWMR, its board of directors, members, or underwriters. There you are. And we'll be back next week with another show. Thank you, everybody.